Let's talk about how to effectively disagree with someone and some tools you can use to make disagreements easier and more beneficial to yourself. Hi, this is Dan Shuck at Glass Half Question. How do you handle it when you disagree with someone? Or how about when they disagree with you? We live in an age where disagreements are celebrated, and we disagree with each other more and more all the time. And for very good reasons. First, as democracy and consumerism have advanced around the world, we are encouraged more and more to voice our opinions and compare our differences. Whether this is leaving a review for a product, voting for your favorite new talent on a television show, or protesting in the streets, we have more opportunities to disagree than ever before in the history of mankind. Second, this also comes from a positive trend towards egalitarianism, as people of all genders, races, and creeds are increasingly, although not often enough, empowered to give voice to their disagreements. 100 years ago, many fewer people felt empowered to express their disagreements than is true today. Third, technology has allowed each of us to become a broadcaster of our opinions and disagreements. This has also been a very positive thing, but it has come with some cost. The access to nearly unlimited information, some of it good, much of it not so good, combined with the ability to rather instantly speak your mind to the entire world means that we have more and more opportunities to find and explore our disagreements with one another. For all of these reasons combined, we seem to feel emboldened to share our disagreement about others without filter, especially when that comes to social media. But this is not just limited to social media. You see it in how we relate to each other in person in day-to-day life. Over the last 25 years, we have shifted our culture internationally around this social media disagreeing phenomenon to make it unacceptable to be offended. You need to have a thick skin, we say. Isn't that a weird phrase? Like having a thicker coat of skin would somehow help with emotional issues? It would be good for mosquitoes, I guess. I'm not sure how thicker skin helps with sadness and frustration. So we kind of have to accept we live in the age of disagreement. It's not completely a good thing. It's also not completely a bad thing. Regardless about how you feel about disagreements, you have to know that we're going to each experience them more and more. But can you learn to be better at disagreeing? More effective? Less offended? I think you can. There are two aspects of disagreeing where you can learn to be more successful. Technique: how can you disagree in a way that doesn't lead to a pointless argument? Notice that I said pointless argument. Not every argument is bad. There are definitely times in life when we need to argue our point. But we also know that arguments often become emotional and can be hard to keep in control. Arguing is a tool best done with preparation and calculation, and that's not very often the way it goes down. So generally, unless you can avoid it, you probably want most of your day-to-day disagreements to not turn into arguments, and you want to plan your arguments carefully. The second aspect of successful disagreement is outcomes. How can you get something out of your disagreement? Of course, the first thing that comes to mind here is, how can you win your argument, or how can you change the other person's opinion? There are definitely ways to learn how to do that more successfully that we will talk about. Another successful outcome may be less satisfying sounding, but good nonetheless, and that is that you learn something and possibly change some of your perspectives. Winning always sounds superior to learning, but so often winning leaves us with nothing more than we had when we started, and almost always learning adds to our lives in some way. Said in a simpler way, think about your favorite food. Aren't you glad that someone convinced you to try that for the first time? So let me give you a preview here of what's coming next in the series and how I'm going to break this down. In the next episode, I will spend some time going over the next tool to add to our Practicing Perspective toolkit, which specifically is for handling successful disagreements. It's called the A-Square: awareness, agreement, amplification, and addition. With this technique, you can at least try to avoid the fifth A, which is for arguments. What I think is kind of cool about the Practicing Perspective Toolkit is that you can use these tools in combination to come up with great solutions for yourself for life's problems and surprise opportunities. Over the last month or so, I've been covering the topic of empathy, and we talked about how this is a basic, important brain function that we can learn to use and control a little more effectively with a tool I call the empathy triangle. I have to remind you not to confuse sympathy and empathy, because we so often do, and it makes you think of something else. Sympathy combines pity with empathy, and that's a higher brain function. Empathy is this more elemental lizard brain type of function, and the empathy triangle is focused on helping you recognize and capture the power of your empathy abilities. Using the empathy triangle, along with the A-square for disagreements, can help you dramatically increase your success in disagreements. That's another set of techniques I'll cover in the next episodes. There's a technique I call Write Your Story that uses both the empathy triangle and the A-square combined. But those successful disagreement techniques also lead to those successful outcomes I was talking about before, and we're definitely going to want to get to that. Those techniques we'll be going over will, in fact, help you win more arguments. Being good at disagreeing does often lead to having the ability and the finesse to actually get other people to understand your perspectives and opinions, and possibly to adjust theirs. Who doesn't like that? There are times in life when it's very important to be able to settle a disagreement and convince the other party to change their course. There are also a lot of times when it's not quite as critical, but it sure would be great to win. But we're also going to use the glass half empty or half full concepts here to look at the other valuable outcomes that can come from effective disagreements. This is all introduced in a really simple way in my children's book for grown-ups, which you can find on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com or right at the www.glasshalfquestion.com website. It makes a good gift for anyone you know that may need help with this idea of perspective. It's also the kind of thing you might need to look at again from time to time, which is why I try to put it in this simple picture book format. Some of the more fundamental concepts of balance and the value of half empty come back into play, and we can look at ways that you can use losing disagreements to make your life better all the time. If you can do that well, with a practiced approach to how you lose your disagreements, there are just as many ways to build opportunity from these occasions as there are wins. But not always, and sometimes you have to learn how to step back from the situation a bit to get the full value out of whatever outcomes come from the disagreement. In the final segments of this part of the Practicing Perspective series, we'll cover more about that. So a lot to cover here in the next few weeks. I try to put these episodes out every Wednesday. That's the halfway point in the week. And if you subscribe or follow here, you'll be able to get more of those episodes. You know how all that works. But if you want to learn more information about me, my book, and this topic, all the videos and so forth, you can go to www.glasshalfquestion.com. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next episode of Practicing Perspective.